2, 1.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Tea Time. It's your girl Killer Queen.
It's your boy Smooth.
We got one hell of a good episode for you tonight. There is a lot to unpack. And as everybody knows, I am a person who likes to follow signs. And I've had lots coming at me recently. So the discussion tonight, not going to be playful. It's going to be on a more serious note, but it is obviously something that needs to be discussed. Because it bleeds into the game. There's a lot to discuss. You know what I mean? Is it just a very is there any gray areas involved? And I want to get everybody in the chat when you start pouring in. Love to get people to interact and want to voice their opinions on things and stuff. So yeah, just give me a few minutes to do some things. And
I got you, girl. I got you.
You
just keep talking. You just keep talking, and I'll handle the rest.
Cool. So yeah, tonight's discussion is going to be about racism. There have been tons of things going on. Not sure if anybody has heard of this in the news at all, but a few months back, there were 6 crooked cops from Mississippi that they severely tortured and essayed 2 men of color. And it was severe. They had planted the inappropriate extracurriculars on these individuals and in their home, entered the home without any sort of warrants. There were definitely weapons involved, and it was disgusting. Not just in a racial situation, although it was racially based. It was a disgusting thing to happen to any human being. But it's the fact that it's because these 2 men were black that these 6 cops gathered together and called themselves the quote-unquote goon squad. That's disgusting. And this was just back in April of this year. So when people try to pretend that racism isn't really as big an issue anymore, it really is. If 6 cops can get away with something like that, and nobody caught on to it, and nobody said this was wrong, that's insane to me.
That's a big issue.
Yeah, it's a huge issue. It's just disgusting. So we're gonna get into a lot of stuff. There were things that really bothered me recently that happened in my server in the Godfather game that I felt needs to be discussed and addressed. And I also would really like to take some time in this episode to discuss the difference between racism and prejudice. There's a huge difference, and I feel like a lot of people just use the word racism as a blanket explanation for everything, but there is a big difference between the two. So I'm definitely going to get into discussing some of this stuff. So in my server, we'll start with that first. I'm in 31.1. And on this server, there are some people, which I'm sure you have heard me discuss about before, saying they have a real big hate on for me, regardless. But I have seen recently that they went ahead. One of these players started a family that was called The Boys, and then they put the 2 SS markers beside it. And their tag was NZS. I'm sure that you all can figure out that that's supposed to be for Nazis. And then within the world chat, they started putting racial slurs like the N-word and spelling it in different ways using, numbers and letters so that they wouldn't be dinged for putting that out there. And I thought that was absolutely disgusting. Disgusting behavior. And it should never be okay. And the fact that people are okay just sitting by and watching it and not saying something and not reporting that kind of behavior is absolutely disgusting to me. I don't care if it's just a game. That kind of thinking is how these things start. A small thing grows into a huge thing. And I strongly believe, I spoke with the server council on my server about this issue, and I feel everyone was pretty much in the same mind frame that if unless you band together and do something together as a unit, a whole unit, then the people who behave this way will just continue to behave that way because they're not held accountable for the really poor choices that they're making. So we had a discussion. I brought it to server council, and I was like, this needs to be addressed, and I need you guys to back me on this because I am not okay allowing this to continue. And I got a lot of support from the other R6s. Yeah, it felt really great that I had that support. Sometimes it's very difficult. And it's difficult sometimes that I feel like that I always have to be the one that says something. And then either people are like, yeah, KQ, we support you, we have you. And some other people are like, there she goes again, just making a big deal, just sprouting off. Like, it's not for me, you know what I mean? It's just how many other people will start to feel uncomfortable? Because even if you're making a racial slur towards, like, let's just say it's towards a black person using the N-word, there are so many people of color and other races that are going to feel uncomfortable by that. Because if it's not that person, it could be them. And that's disgusting. The worst part is, I feel like some of these people, I feel Rexy's coming on. Hey, Rexy! Some of these people, I think, are just attention seeking. But it's like, if you spark a match, that's all it takes to start a huge forest fire, right? Same idea with this. You just need like one person saying the wrong thing, and then that's it.
Joining the call.
Hey!
Yo.
There we go. Better?
Yeah, now we just need Rex in here.
Okay, cool. Sorry. While we're doing that, I'm just going to quickly jump over and get this so I can just share it a little bit. This gives people some time to jump in. Hey, it's okay, I'm back.
Hey, Olivia, what's going on?
I love seeing people start popping in, so this is good. More people, the better. Right?
Yep.
Sorry, I'm just... there we go. Hey, Rexy.
Hey, guys.
What's going on, Fam Bam?
Welcome to the tea time.
I don't know what was going on with my Discord a little while ago, but it was not working for me at all.
But you know what? That's been going on for a lot of people.
This is a big topic that you got going on here.
Yeah, it's a serious topic.
It really is, and this is like, goes well beyond just the Godfather gaming community. So that's why I really wanted to jump in here in conversation, because I think this is not just even a gaming issue. This has become like a social media and life issue now, because so many people are able to hide their identities behind the veil of these cards and not using profile pictures and fake accounts and things like so that they face no consequences for this ridiculous behavior, and it's emboldened them Right, and it's emboldened them to be able to come out now and talk certain ways. You know, like Smooth and I have talked about one of your previous servers where we're still playing, where we have a particular player who likes to call people retards, and that we have voiced our opinion against using it. But apparently that makes us soft and snowflakes, and we're, not, men or whatever, because we take exception to them using that phrase. But, in this situation, if I were to meet this person face to face, I sure as hell know he's not using that word to describe me, not to my face.
No.
There'd be consequences and repercussions I don't think he'd be able to handle. So, like I said,
I feel that way very much. Like everybody talks a big game. It's a bully mentality.
And there's no.
And it's offensive. Yeah.
And I think even in situations now where people, can record everything. When you're out in public, it's changed the way that, people have to behave, so that now they have to come back and find other ways to express these terrible views that they have.
It's about accountability, right?
And this is what they do. So, correct. Yeah. So 50 years ago, 60 years ago, and further back, people would put on white hoods and go out with their friends and do these terrible things. Now they don't need to do that. They can just get behind the screen of their phone or their computer and hide their face and know that nobody's ever going to be able to be like, hey, that's Joe Davis from the hardware store. I recognize his voice.
Yeah, exactly. It's terrible. It's terrible to think that we're still dealing with this topic so far in time, and it's been going for so long. And it's not just for Black people, it's all people of color, anybody who's different. That's it. And it's not even just white people to Black people anymore. And I'm sorry if people get offended, but it's also Black people to white people. It's just anytime that somebody is different from somebody else, if they're intimidated or, afraid or not used to change, then they end up doing these ridiculous things. They get caught up in these thoughts and actions. It doesn't have to be that way. It's a choice that they're making. And we're so far now that I understand. I'm not saying that it was good in the past. It wasn't. Yeah, and Olivia's right. She's and legit killing our youth. It is. It is killing our youth. Back in the 50s, 60s, it's a taught thing. It's a taught thing now. Nobody is born a racist person or a prejudiced person. That is a learned behavior. So shame on whoever's parents did that and did not correct it.
I would agree with you 100% on that. And it's amazing to me that so many people still have these views in today's age, where everybody preaches so much acceptance and so much openness. And really what it's done is created a larger divide in society, where, and it's people from both sides not being willing to accept the other side's point of views. And that's further, creates this divide. So it's a race issue. It's a gender issue. It's, anybody who has issue with somebody for being different. And like you were saying before, racism and prejudice are completely different things. And you're right, because racism is about race. If you don't like somebody because of the color of their skin, that's racism. If you don't like somebody because you don't approve of their life choices or their point of view or something like that, that's prejudice.
I feel for me, racism is where you feel like your race is superior to all other races. Whereas prejudice, you're right, it doesn't have to be just about race, but it's about a specific thing. So specifically Black people, specifically people with mental incapabilities, specifically drug addicts. Like it's a specified thing. Whereas racism, I feel like, is where you believe that your race is superior to everyone else's race. And unfortunately, everybody just sees any sort of injustice and they're like, racism. You can't go throwing that term out so loosely because it loses the importance of why we're saying this. It's the same as like Olivia and I were just talking about this earlier. And it's like when someone's like, oh, they're gaslighting. That's not gaslighting. It is verbally abusive when someone does that to you like once. Gaslighting is like when that situation is being repeated over and over and over a long period of time, days, weeks, months, years. And these people are making you feel like question your own sanity. You know something to be true, and they've started to make you question whether you are, in the wrong or incorrect. That's gaslighting. Every time someone says something that you don't like, that's not gaslighting. That's just being a dick. There's a huge difference. Same idea. And like Olivia just said, it's getting younger and younger, and they are zero capability to punish, so they continue to be allowed. She's 100% correct on that. It's younger and younger, and we as parents are really losing the ability to discipline our children at all. And then these children are growing up and committing these horrible crimes because they're not being held accountable for their actions when they're younger. It's just disgusting.
We live in.
Sorry,
go ahead, Smooth.
I was gonna say, I do think you're right. However, because it does start at home. Everything that all of this starts at home. All of this racism, I believe, is homegrown. I agree, but we have people in here now, and we are burning up through time. So I want to go ahead and jump into the topic. 6 former Mississippi law enforcement officers were sentenced this week for torturing and abusing 2 black men in Franklin County, Mississippi. Senior District Judge Tom Lee sentenced the defendants to terms of prison ranging from 10 to 40 years. Christian Dedman, 29, former narcotics investigator; Brett McAlpin, 53, former RSO chief investigator; Hunter Alwyn, 31, former RCSO deputy; Jeffrey Middleton, 46, former RCSO lieutenant; Daniel Updike, 28, former RSCO deputy; and Joshua Hartfield, 32, former narcotics investigator. The depravity of the crimes committed by these defendants, said the judge, cannot be overstated, and they will now spend between 10 to 40 years in prison for their heinous attack on citizens that had sworn to protect. These defendants kicked in the door of a home where 2 black men were residing, handcuffed and arrested them without probable cause, called them racial slurs, and punched and kicked, tased, and assaulted them. After one of the defendants fired his gun in the mouth of one of the victims, breaking his jaw and lacerating his tongue, the defendants gathered outside to come up with a cover story as the victim lay bleeding to death on the floor. Officers who violated their constitutional rights will be held accountable by the Justice Department for their crimes. Now, this guy survived, the one that they shot in the mouth. The bullet actually came out of his neck. But before we go on with this, my one thing I just want to say is this. I've worked in many, many places. I've lived in many, many states. I've even lived in some southern states, and I can tell you something. Normally, there's maybe one guy or girl who's outwardly racist, and you can tell, right? And sometimes it's not in the way you say things or the things you say, it's how you say it, right? Or how you act. So like sometimes when someone's racist without them even really saying it, right? You can just kind of tell. And I'm telling you, in all the states and all the jobs I've worked and been to, there's usually a very small percentage of the population there or in the area that is like outwardly racist, and you can tell. So you have to ask yourself here, what kind of anomaly are we talking about? You're talking about an entire squad of racist cops. There was a report saying that they have actual text message proof or something where one of the cops says it's like a group chat where they say, you guys want to go out on a mission tonight? This wasn't something that accidentally, randomly happened. This is something that these people were doing for a very long time, and it just so happened that they got caught. So you have to ask yourself, is it the town that they're in is a very racist town? Is that, like, what are the odds that 6 police officers, decorated, long-term veteran police officers, narcotics agents to be exact, which are like, they have a crazy amount of room on their leash as far as what they can get away with on a day-to-day basis, and you're talking about these guys are the ones responsible for picking up the drugs and the weapons on the scenes here, and they're supposed to be taking them and making sure that they're filed correctly, and these are the guys that you are not supposed to lose sleep about at night when it comes to protecting and serving and doing the right thing. These are not beat cops. These are not guys that were just hired. These are veteran cops. So you have to ask yourself here, what are we dealing with? Is it the town? What are the odds that 6 of these guys happen to be racist on the same team? I think that we need to dissect this and figure out, are all of these guys, did they go to the same high school together? You know what I'm saying? Because these guys could have grown up together in a very racist town, and it built for years. I want to know what is going on with this. What do you guys think?
First, I just want to thank you for going and getting that information and informing people what their names are and what their status was for work. It's important that people know who they are. I know everyone's say their names for the people that died. Say these people's names. Expose them. So that people understand these people who you sat and had coffee with, you've had these people over for dinner, and secretly, and they didn't just attack these people with guns, they sexually assaulted them. That's going above and beyond. You're not just destroying their body or their mentality, you're destroying their spirit. You're attacking that human being's spirit and you're just degrading them. Oh, getting heated.
What do you think, Rex? What is going on here in this situation? What are the odds that 6 highly decorated officers, long-term veteran officers, just so happen to all be racist? And again, we're talking about anomalies here. Keep in mind, there's levels to racism, right? There's a type of racism where people are just well, I won't, I don't dislike that type of person or whatever, but I don't want to date that person, right? That there's that type of racism, right? But then some people would argue that that's just particular taste, okay?
Right.
And then there's a step further where there's the people that are oh, have you ever been with an Indian guy? Have you ever been with an Asian guy? Have you ever been with Arabian guy? There's certain types, right? And then there's a couple steps after that. Keep in mind here, we're talking anomalies. Then there's the people that are just in random conversations, effing N-word or effing Arabian or effing whatever, right? They say certain racist things, and then you're oh, they're racist. And then there's the Klansmen. Then there's the guys that want to inflict.
When men are so comfortable to do those sorts of heinous crimes, that is a deep-seated hatred. That is something that is not just, they didn't just pick that up in high school. That's coming from their parents, their parents' parents, their parents' parents' parents. It's going back. That stuff is taught down. When it's that deeply rooted, that's not just, I did this or that in high school. I met someone who had the same idea. I had a bad experience with this race. That's not that. That is a taught, in my opinion, of course, it's a taught behavior that is deeply rooted within their families. And you're right, this was meticulated. They premeditated on this, and it was not their first time doing it. It's just really one of the times that they really got caught and busted. They anticipated on that one guy not making it, and he did. That's just, it's just so mind-blowing to me. It's just so disgusting. How you can hate an entire group of people for nothing. They did absolutely nothing to you, to your children, and you hate every one of them. For what? Because they're different from you? How small-minded. How something must have happened to these people in their childhood. You know what I mean? Like, how you just wonder, how young were they when they... I'm just saying, that's not something that just happens by happen chance. Like, this is a deeply rooted hatred that is taught.
I think on
Go ahead, buddy.
many accounts, you're talking about something that's coming from the childhood, taught at home, things like that. But there are situations in life where people do pick up this incredible hatred towards a particular race or a particular group because of something that's happened to them in their life that's triggered this. Whether, it's, maybe a particular colored person murdered your wife or stole from you, or things like that. There are these triggering things that can happen in your life, but there's another part of this also, because I'm very curious about what Smooth is saying, how there's these 6 guys that are involved in this situation, and are they all from the same town and whatever, and the different varying degrees of racism and hatred that they could have. I'm curious as to whether all of them actually felt this way, or were there people in this group that went along with it simply because this was, like you said, this was the drug group, right? These were the guys. This is a tight-knit group, and you see very often, like in movies and TV shows and things like that, where there's the weaker constitutioned individuals who make it into this group that are pressured to go along with what it is that they're doing, or they'll have some type of like dirt on them that they're essentially like, listen, this is what we do, but we know what you did, so as long as you keep your mouth shut, we're going to keep our mouth shut.
Right.
And they're forced to go. Right, like they're coerced to go along with this, even though maybe they don't necessarily agree with it.
Yeah, it could be fear-based as well. Like, once you get there, you have an idea of how it might go, and then things start getting out of hand, and you're already involved. So they're like, sorry, bud, but you're already involved anyways, and they're too scared to say something after. They're like, oh my God, now I'm worried about my family and how this will reflect on them. And so, like, I'm not saying every single person is a hated person. You're right. It depends. It depends on the situation. Maybe one of the
curious with this group, though, because like, they're like, for 6 people, and like Smooth was saying, did they all go to high school together? Did they all grow up together? And I will say, as I'm 44 years old. I live here in the United States of America. There is a general opinion that the South, particularly the Deep South, still has the deepest rooted roots to racism in the country. Yep. So I'm not surprised to find out that this happened where it happened, because that's considered the Deep South.
Yes. I thought that as well. Like, I'm from Canada, and even we know that, like, it's deeply rooted there, and it's still very much alive.
Right. So, like, things you have to take into consideration is, like, the racism has been around for a really, really long time. Okay. And if you think about it in terms, and I don't want to get political or anything, but if you look at it through the eyes of politics, it's only been, 60, 50 years or so since the laws in this country started to change to be inclusive of African Americans or Black people, whatever you want to call them.
Right, like the Civil Rights Acts and whatnot.
Correct. So even when those laws changed, there was still so much resistance to those things. Like, you had the people, the National Guard having to be called in to escort people into what were previously all white schools and things like along those lines. So it's a much shorter clip of time that we've had these laws protecting, minorities and such. So it's kind of easy to believe that there are still these deep-rooted groups because it hasn't been as outwardly accepted for as long as it wasn't accepted, if you follow what I'm saying.
Yes, I do. I'm not diverting completely, but since we're so openly discussing, I really want to just touch in to like the gray area. I know that a lot of people are going to be like, there's no gray area in racism. There is a gray area. Some people, I had a situation recently where someone has a very dark sense of humor and just made there was like a little meme that they had posted and it was not appropriate. But for that person, their sense of humor is very dark. And I see that in a lot of people these days. And it's not that they feel like any sort of ill will towards any race whatsoever. But it may be taken that way. And then to throw the term out, calling them a racist and whatnot it's inappropriate. So my question is to you guys, because I'll tell you what I believe when I'm done hearing from you. Like, what do you think makes a comment like racist or dark humor?
I think it's the intent behind it.
And that is exactly what I was going to say. It's always the intent.
Let me throw an example out there. There was a movie a couple years back made with Ashton Kutcher and Bernie Mac.
Yep. Yes, it's coming.
Yes.
It was a that movie with Sidney Poitier, which was the original.
So it was the black family, the white fiance, and there's the scene where they're all at dinner, and Ashton Kutcher brings up, off-colored or racist jokes, and they're like, "Well, tell one," So he's telling them because they're making him tell them.
Yeah.
And when he's telling them, it starts off, everything's all funny, and they're like, "Oh, ha ha ha, that's funny." Then he gets like a little bit more serious, like a little bit darker of a joke.
Or like more bold because they were laughing at it in the first place. So he's like, okay,
correct.
Take it a little further. And then they're like,
all of a sudden they're like, nope, kill him. That's it. Like get him out of the house. And he's, and so I think that when it's humor, and this is what I think that as a society, one of the things that we have really started to lose sight of, is when something is done without malice intent. If it's just for humor, look at the number of comedians that have been crucified for making jokes. And like Dave Chappelle, for example.
I love him.
This guy makes jokes about everybody.
That's right.
Okay, and that's the thing, is like, because for him it's comedy, it's jokes. He's not biased to any one particular group. No. But individual groups take exception to certain things that they say. Matt Rife just went through this not that long ago.
I like him as well.
One of the most popular comedians going right now. And if you listen to the special that people took exception to, he made a joke about a girl who was a hostess at a restaurant who had a black eye, and it was a domestic violence joke.
Yes.
But he made jokes later in his set about like handicapped people and mentally handicapped people, and that were so much worse as far as like how like deep and dark the jokes were.
Yeah.
That it amazed me that like so many people just honed in and focused on this one thing, and I'm like, but look at the whole rest of the thing. Nobody's upset about these other comments. No one's mad about these other jokes. Why? If you're like, you can't get so upset about the one and then forgive the rest. Either hate the whole thing or understand that it's comedy. Like, there's there's a comedy bit with Steve Martin and Richard Pryor from it's the late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah.
And Richard Pryor's interviewing for a job. Steve Martin is the company head, and he's asking him questions, and he says, well, let's do some word association. If I said this to you, if I said that to you, and then he starts making like slightly racial comments, and Richard Pryor goes right back at him with racial comments.
And it's like underhanded sort of ways.
I mean, and it goes as far as, where Steve Martin uses the N-word, and Richard Pryor comes back at him, and he's, calling him a cracker and a honky, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's a comedy bit. Like, people are, like, laughing hysterically. It's a comedy bit. And they both understood that. They were great friends, and they both understood, hey, this is comedy. We're not doing this, like, we're bringing awareness to people because this still happens in this day and age, but we're putting a comical spin on it. If
That's
you
right.
did that bit today, both of those people would be cancel cultured off the face of the planet.
Everybody's just afraid to offend everybody else. Everybody else is offended by things. It's just like Liv just said, if you are feeling triggered by something like that, then it's up to you to seek out the counseling that you need so you don't feel triggered by those things. It's not up to the comedian who you are aware of his style. If you are watching his show, you're aware of his style, and then you get triggered. So everything else was okay, but because you said this one thing and you might be having a bad day, all of a sudden, his whole career is put on blast because somebody felt offended. That's inappropriate. And you hit the nail right on the head when you said it's about the intent, malicious intent, because I legit was just having this conversation earlier today. Malicious intent. If you are saying something in a way, you're with friends who know that you are not a prejudiced or racist person, and you just have a really dark sense of humor, then the intent is not ill will. In which case, I don't think that person should be punished or judged or made to feel uncomfortable in a place that they had formerly felt like safe enough that they could express that type of deep humor. And now all of a sudden that person may not feel the same way because somebody else was slightly offended. I am tired of a life where you just consistently have to walk on eggshells all the time, trying not to offend people or else. And
this is the society we've created now.
It is. We went from, it's the pendulum, swinging one way, and then we swung all the way to the other way. You know what I mean? It's going to be a while before we get into a happy medium.
The way this was explained to me, and I forget where it was that I saw this, but it made a lot of sense to me, was that society has worked in kind of like repeating waves since forever, okay?
Yeah.
So you have a group, a generation of parents who their life is hard, okay? Yeah. They have physical labor, manual labor, their life is hard, the economy is terrible, things like that. They want to make the life of their children easier. Yes. So they do things in order to make their children's life easier. They work harder. They put more money away. They create and invent things that make their children's life easier. That child now has a certain feeling of life is a little bit easier. So when they grow up to become the parent, what their experience is that their life is a little bit easier, but they still want their kid's life to be even easier. So the process continues. And what ends up happening is you water down society and make society as a whole weaker and weaker and weaker. And weaker maybe not the right term, but let's say softer. And
I feel like weaker is a very good term.
You make them more entitled, more spoiled, to the point that what happens is all of a sudden you turn around and these people cannot do things for themselves. They can't succeid on their own. And if you look at society, today, our generation, like my son is 18 years old. I love him to death. He's an idiot. I love him so much, and I want him to have the greatest life, and I work my butt off to provide a life for him. Yeah. But I sent this kid to the store to pick up birthday cards for a birthday party we were going to, and he came home without the envelopes for the cards. And I said, kid, I said, kid, where are the envelopes? He goes, well, you told me to pick up the cards. I said, did you think the envelopes that were behind the card were just there for display? Or like, what am I supposed to do with this now? But like, that's how so many kids are today. Like, there's just no thought process. There's no ability to when I was growing up, my father always told me, kid, just be smarter than the problem directly in front of your face. If you can fix that problem, then move on to the next, then to the next, you'll be fine. These kids can't figure anything out on their own in large part. But if you tell them they can't, they're offended. They're hurt. They're triggered. They're having a tantrum. They're throwing a fit. They're yelling. They're screaming. And this
it's exactly
this
like
is the turning point now.
Project to complete, do it without using the internet, and their minds explode. They don't ever think to go to the local library and look up in like an encyclopedia or some book on the topic. Look in a book instead of online. They don't comprehend. They can't do anything unless it's digital. And now that's starting to bleed into situations like the racism stuff. It's so easy to find, like you were saying, to start going off. You find other like-minded individuals. It doesn't even have to be in your city anymore. It could be around the world, and all you have to do is create a chat group. And everybody who dislikes the same group of people that you do, all of a sudden you have like all these people. And like a lot of people, and it really bothers me coming back to it being within the games that I play. These are hate crimes. When you go into a server and you start doing it and you think you're being real funny, it's not funny. It's a hate crime. People get charged with that stuff. Like, I don't know why they think it's a joke. I don't know why it is tolerated so much, especially within video gaming and whatnot. Like, I feel like you should have zero tolerance. If you're in a server somewhere or in a game somewhere and somebody has proof that you committed this crime.
I gotta say, because we're running out of time here. We have to get through this. And we haven't even completely told the entire story. So let's tell the entire story. I'll run through it quickly, and then I have two questions for you guys each. Before we get out of here. All right. So you guys can hear me, okay?
Yeah.
All right. According to court documents and plea hearings, the defendants admitted on January 24th of last year, that's 2023, Deadman, that's the guy in charge of the 6 guys, sent a group message to Middleton, Elward, and Updike, 3 members of the Goon Squad, orchestrating the mission and forcibly enter a home in Braxton County, Mississippi, where the 2 black men were residing. The Goon Squad, the group is an RCSO officers, were known for using excessive force already and not reporting it. So these guys were known for already doing this kind of stuff. Deadman warned the officers before they arrived that there might be surveillance cameras at the house and told them no bad mugshots, meaning that the officers should use excessive force, but they should make sure not to leave any marks that they would be captured on mugshot. That's sick. Upon arriving at the home, the defendants kicked in the door and entered the home without a warrant. The defendants handcuffed and arrested the men without probable cause because they said that they believed that they committed a crime. They called them racial slurs and warned them to stay out of Rankin County. Deadman, the guy in charge, fired his gun twice to intimidate the men. Further, the defendants punched and kicked the men, tased the men 17 times, and held them down and poured liquids on their face. That's, in other words, that's a form of torture that are
it's like waterboarding.
Yeah, waterboarding, right? And then forced them to involuntarily ingest the liquids. They threw eggs at them and assaulted them with a DILDO. McAlpin, the senior officer on the scene, failed to intervene to stop the torture or abuse and stole property while the incident occurred. At the conclusion of the incident, Elward surreptitiously removed a bullet from the chamber of his gun, forced the gun into MJ's mouth, and pulled the trigger. The unloaded gun clicked but did not fire. Elward racked the slide, intending to dry fire a second time. When Elward pulled the trigger, the gun discharged. The bullet lacerated the tongue and broke his jaw and exited his neck. While MJ was bleeding on the floor, the defendants did not provide medical attention, but instead gathered outside the home to try and figure out how they were going to come up with a fake story. and they ended up putting a fake BB gun on him so that they could say that they thought he had a real gun, which is why they fired the shot. Now, I have two questions for you guys. Now, we were talking earlier about maybe one of these officers, or maybe a couple of the officers, they didn't really want to go through with this because they said that only a few of them were in this text message group talking. So now let's just assume that you're one of these officers that's on the scene that got racked into this. You're a new boot, you only been there a little bit, and this is going on. The first question I have for you guys, keep your answers short. I'm gonna get to both of you. Queen first. What would you do? These are your commanding officers. They know where you live. If you don't, they might already have some type of dirt on you, or even if they don't, you know that your life is in danger if you rat on these guys. What are you doing?
Okay, personally, it's a very sensitive subject. I would leave. I don't care. I don't care what they say. I don't care if they try to shoot me. I'm already decked out in like bulletproof gear, so I would leave. Period. I am a very strong believer that if you see something, you say something. If you don't, the cycle continues, and you're equally as bad as the person who was committing the crime in the first place.
Okay.
So I would speak.
All right. What about you, Rex?
Yeah, I have a lot of family members who are police officers, so I understand that there's, a very big thing about speaking out against other officers and being a rat per se or whatever. But I do agree with Queen that the way to stop the cycle is to put your foot down to stop the cycle. That you are putting yourself at risk, absolutely, by doing so. But even if it just starts off with telling your commanding officer, no, this is a bad idea. We should not do this. And then if you have to take further steps after that, you do what you have to do and take those steps. But as soon as you participate and allow yourself to be a part of this, you're complicit. You're part of the problem now.
All right. So, I first of all, I want to say I agree with you. Now, let's just say that one or two or more of these guys that were of the 6 that were arrested actually didn't really want to go along with this. Should they get a break?
No.
Why?
You stood there and watched. You even participated. I don't care if you were scared. I don't care what your reasoning is. You participated. You're not getting a break. You're equally as guilty. Next time, make better choices.
I agree. And
Chat I agree with that.
Chat Mafia, these are questions for you guys too. Number one, Chat Mafia, if you were with them and you didn't really want to be there, and this is happening in front of you, what are you doing? And then also the second question to Chat Mafia is, should they get a break? Rex, what do you think?
Yeah, no, look, if you don't want to do this and you don't want to be a part of it and you know it's wrong, you have the option to not show up. Okay, you don't have to be there. Even if you go and say like, hey, I'm not comfortable with this. What if I stand guard outside and make sure nobody comes or whatever? You are still complicit. You are still a part of what is happening. Maybe you didn't fire the gun, but you're just as guilty because you allowed it to happen. You didn't do the right thing and you didn't step up and stop it. So yeah, you're just as guilty. You don't deserve any break. Maybe you don't get charged with attempted murder or something like that because you didn't fire the gun, but you still need to be charged with to the fullest extent of the law, with conspiracy, with everything else that they could possibly throw at you.
Okay, yeah, that was going to be my third question. I'll jump to Queen really quick. Number one, Queen, you're the judge. This is the last question. We got to get out of here. You're the judge, Queen. Yeah. I told you all the details of at least what we know right now. We'll update everybody maybe on the next episode if we get any further news. But given what you know now, what I told you and what you already knew, you're the judge. What should their sentence be? That's the first part. The second part of the question is, because they were the police officers, should they get extra punishment? Because these are the guys that should be upholding the law. They took an oath. What's your answer?
Okay, very quickly, I just want to thank our chat mafia for sticking it out with us through this. Whoever's watching live, whoever watches after, thank you. It's important to discuss difficult things. That's how we bring awareness. That's how we try and help break the cycle. As for my answer, this is going to seem really cold, but these people are subhuman. Death penalty.
Damn.
You can't ever repeat that again if you aren't around. How do you think their families felt? How do you think they felt when you were doing those things to them? And it's not the first time, and you meticulously thought this out and planned it? Nah, man, death penalty.
Okay. Rex.
I mean, it's you gotta go with whatever the fullest extent of the law is. I don't think you're looking at a situation where you should be accepting like plea bargains or anything like that. But you have to be true to what the law states. And if you happen to, I don't know if the state is a death sentence state, but if it is, and what their actions meet the criteria needed for potential death sentence, then that's what the prosecution should be looking for. Yeah. You always have to prosecute with the intent of the fullest extent of the law. And then it's up to the judge to render his sentencing. But you should always attempt to get the maximum. What's the saying? Shoot for the moon. If you miss, at least you'll be among the stars. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you shoot for the maximum, and then if you fall short of the maximum, at least you're still getting a significant enough sentence that it should deter others from hopefully doing something like this again.
Agreed. Okay, well, really quickly, message to the people. Go ahead, Queen.
I love you guys, as always, and thank you for sticking it out in this very difficult topic. I'll be bringing some more really awesome, lighthearted content very soon. And keep watching. Hit that like button. Hit the subscribe. Go over to my ACG boys and like all their stuff. We're a good, tight-knit family, so spread that love around, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Rex?
This is a huge topic, guys, and it's sure, we could cover this for hours and hours and hours and whatever, but as people, you have to say something. Like Queen said, if you see something, you have to say something, and as a society, we all have to do better than what we've been doing. Not only at calling people out on their bullshit, but at having thicker skin and being stronger as people to enable ourselves to use our voices and speak out against what we're seeing in the right way. There's a right way and wrong way to do it. You have to find the right way. You can't go against something with equal negative energy that they're coming at you, or else nothing is going to get settled. Nothing's going to be solved. Right. You're just both going to stand there screaming at each other. So you have to do it the right way and in a manner which you might actually, make some progress.
And like Olivia says, being kind is free. Kindness is free, everybody. Give it a try.
Well, everybody, I hope you guys enjoyed the content. Like our friend said, don't forget to like and subscribe. Really appreciate all of you. Queen, excellent episode. Rex, thank you so much for joining us on Tea Time today. And until next time, y'all, peace. Great episode, guys. Great episode.
Thank you, boys, so much for being a part of this. It was really important for me. I got super heated and emotional at one point there. It was getting a little heavy on my heart.
Yeah, I heard it and